We have a very, very highly anticipated topic today, and we have the best man for it. And he'll explain why he's the best man for it in a little bit. But our topic today is on scams. So something that everyone is interacting with, something that you may be getting 10 calls by scammers or spam calls a day, and you're wondering why that may be. Well, hopefully we can provide some of those answers to you today. My name is Cody Williams. I am one of the program coordinators here at Memory Movement Charlotte, and this is our June Take Charge live session. So without further ado, Bill is our special guest for the week, and he can go ahead and introduce why he is the man for this job and why he's the man for this type of questions.
Thank you, Cody.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. So my name is Bill Hammelmann. I'm the president of a local company called CCP Technologies. Carolina Computer Partners was our original name 25 years ago, but like everything, we're staying up with the times. And so now we're CCP Tech. I've been in that role for about 5 years, but my connection to cybersecurity goes way back to the beginning of my career. I started my career in national security, and I graduated of the United States Air Force Academy. My very first job after the Air Force Academy was in working with the integration of all of the different systems, cryptography, defenses against threat actors who were trying to be adversaries for the U.S. government. And I started my career in the kind of technical defense of the military's systems. From that point forward, after I transitioned out of the Air Force, I have been working in the software industry for about 20 years now. I worked for Microsoft on their national security team, and one of our primary clients was the United States Cybersecurity Command. And its mission across the globe is to stop cyber threats, primarily against government infrastructure, but more generally against the population. And so and from that point in my career, I continued to kind of move in the direction of how do I take that service to that greater good and bring it really to the local level. And so in my role at CCP Tech, we provide IT services to nonprofits, small and medium businesses, state and local government, education, et cetera. And we spend, I would say, more than half of our time dealing with defensive, anti-scam, anti-hacker, cybersecurity activities. So for me, it's been the last 20 years of my life. It's my 20 hours of every day at this point. And I care deeply about protecting the folks I love. I care deeply about protecting and serving the community. And so I'm just real pleased to be in a position to be able to share some expertise about the things that I've learned over my career and the things that we are dealing with on a daily basis. The evolution of scams, which, I think 20 years ago, most scams were not online. And today, I would say 99% plus of scams are online, and therefore very accessible. You are very accessible to them, and they are very accessible to you. And so that's my background. I want to set the stage a little bit about talking about what I'll call the threat landscape looks like. So who are the bad guys? What at a high level, what are they trying to do? What are the scams? And then from there, we'll sort of just transition to talk about some of the kind of interesting topics and details there. But as far as the cybersecurity industry goes, the adversary today is not what you may have seen in a movie, some high school kids running around on skateboards trying to hack into your mainframe. The threat community right now is run like a business. It is run very professional. And when I say that, I think it's important to understand that these organizations are global. They have an HR department that helps them with their recruiting. It helps them with their training. It helps them with their evaluation of their hackers. They have research and development departments that help them innovate new ways to go after victims. And they have a continuous process improvement mechanism where they are evaluating how they're doing. How successful are they? Are they making enough money? and they adjust how they go after people based on that. They have developed an ideal client profile. An ideal target profile is probably what they would call it. And so, though they generally cast a wide net, they look to do and identify a couple of very specific opportunities. The first is whether they can establish trust with somebody, with their target. If they can establish trust, the likelihood of a really big payout is more likely, and they'll put a lot more resources into that situation. And the second thing is whether they can plausibly give the impression of significant urgency. And so this is probably what most of us see more day to day, the quick pop up of something urgent is happening, it needs your attention, you need to take an action. And so between those two kind of key approaches, we probably cover 99% of what is happening in the threat landscape. And so I'll end up talking a little bit about both of those as we go. I think we've got some kind of prepared questions about the different types of scams and some of the things that are particularly of concern to the elder community, to the local community. And so we'll talk about some of those things as well.
Yeah. So like you kind of mentioned the target audience, right? So why would talking about our common population here, so older adults, why would they be considered the target audience for some of the scammers?
Yeah, no, it's a great question because it is an area of focus for these attackers.
Yeah.
They are looking to do a couple of things, right? I mentioned already, they're looking to establish trust and they're looking to exploit urgency. It is just generationally true that elder Americans, and maybe I would say even globally, are more likely to trust institutions. They're more likely to want to understand the rules and to follow the rules. They are more likely to ask questions, and when they have those questions answered, to trust those answers. And so there is a sort of, I would say, generational attribute that makes an elder population, I would say maybe age 60 and older is probably how they think about it. They are able to really talk about specific areas of interest for those folks. So healthcare, financial retirement savings, family emergencies. These are all areas that this population just has a much higher propensity to resonate with. And also this population tends to have larger savings, right? They have retirement accounts, they have estates, they have real property that if an attacker puts in the time and effort, they can get a real payout. And so they will tailor their approach to align really well to the topics that resonate that population.
Yeah. So they're just being really smart with their tactics, of course. And then in terms of the type of scams that older adults may face, what are some of the common ones that you're seeing? And then what are some ways that they can prevent those?
I would say that the most common scams that we see these days that are targeted at the elder community is either an IT type scam. This is the Microsoft support desk, and there's a problem with your account. Mm-hmm. We see that come in email. We see that come in by text message. We see that come in by phone call. Not necessarily the Microsoft help desk. They might say it's Google. They'll pick some really common technology that you may know about. Odds are that most people know about, and they'll say, "Hey, I'm with that organization. Your account has a problem." Why that works, and I've worked on quite a few people who will say, "You know what? I don't even think I have a Microsoft account, but this email says
I do,
and that I'm actually about to be charged."
Yeah,
there's often they will layer in with that the urgency side. In addition to, "Hi, this is the Microsoft help desk," the message will then go to, "Your account has been locked, and there's going to be a payment that happens, and we already have your credit card number," even though they don't, "but your account is about to be charged X number of dollars, and so it's kind of urgent. In the next day, this is going to happen. If they didn't get you live, if they send an email, they'll ask you to interact with that."
And we have so many accounts nowadays. So I feel like it's so hard to keep up with all of them to begin with. So you might not even remember, oh, maybe I do have an Amazon account, even though you never set it up. Or maybe there was some type of affiliation, because sometimes when you go to certain websites, you'll notice like, oh, this is going to sign me up because I signed up for this one, right?
So absolutely true. And if the bait is taken, right, if it's hey, this is Microsoft, and you say, I don't have a Microsoft account, you must be mistaken. If you reply, if you interact, again, is it text messages, an email? Is it a phone call? If you begin the interaction, I mentioned their HR department. They have one and they have a playbook. If you say, hey, I don't actually have a Microsoft account, I think you're mistaken. They will say, oh, you know what? You're right. You are mistaken. Which account did you have again? Oh. Or, oh, maybe it was your Gmail account. And you'll say, no, I don't have a Gmail account. I use Spectrum. Oh, you know what? That was on the second page. Okay, you're right. It was Spectrum. And, I'm sorry. No, I'm so sorry that I said the wrong thing. It is Spectrum. You were right. But there is a problem with your Spectrum account, and you probably can't see it yet, but I can see it on my side. And they'll take the conversation from there. Gone are the days of them having a funny accent that you can clearly say this is a bad person. Gone are the days of, if it's an email, that they're going to have bad English. It's going to be very polished. You may or may not be talking to a real human, but that human you're talking to is going to have really good English. And they're going to begin to chat you up, and they're going to establish trust. If you have said, hey, I really want to clear up this account charge, they'll be happy to help you with that. And, they'll just have you give your credit card number, and they'll be on their way, and they will have helped you. But if they start to chat you up and they establish that there may actually be a bigger payout there, then they're going to continue to do the relationship for as long as it takes to move in that direction. So that's the IT type scam. We see a lot of those. I'll give one more example. This one's true for my company in the last, I'll say, about 3 months. We had someone call us out of the blue, and they said, hey, I missed a voicemail from you guys. You said that there was something wrong with my computer, and I'm so sorry I missed the voicemail. I'm calling you back. So like, what's wrong with my computer? And this is just a random person. They weren't one of our clients. And so we started to investigate, how did you, who called you, and what was the voicemail? So what had happened was a hacker, and we don't have any idea who, but someone had found my company on our website and figured out that we cover the Carolinas, and had started to spam out to the community people who could potentially react to, hey, a local company that does computers says you have an issue. And so, luckily for this person, they didn't answer the call. And I think the voicemail was a little bit garbled, so they didn't get the bad phone number to call the attacker back at. And so they found our phone number online. So they went to our website. They actually verified, called our number from our online website, and got the real us. And we said, hey, that was a scam. That was really lucky.
Yeah.
And you can't necessarily expect that will work in the future, because also in the last 3 months, we had a client who had someone reach out to them. They were a civil engineering firm, and a potential client reached out to them asking for a land survey because they were going to buy some property along I-77, and it was a property being developed. And they went back and forth, signing a contract over the course of probably a few days.
Oh my gosh.
And then when it got to the point of like, hey, can you wire the money? It got caught. We caught it shut it down. But all this conversation happened through regular business channels. But what was really fascinating was the attacker had a website. They had established a legitimate company. It was a shell company, but it was a legitimate North Carolina based in Asheville property development company that didn't exist. And they had gone so far with a relatively sophisticated client to almost get the wire transaction to go through.
Wow.
And so the key piece here is, almost no matter what, if someone reaches out to you, it is very likely a scam. Even if you do have a Microsoft account, even if you are civil engineering firm who does land surveys, when someone reaches out to you, be very mindful that they are probably not who they say, and you need to 100% verify who they are, and they can make that very difficult.
And so when you say they reach out to you, when they reach out to you and what, like asking for IT issue or saying you have an account issue, those types of things. So it's not always just like, hey, so-and-so is reaching out from Memory and Movement, right? But it's always good to verify, right?
It is. It's a great point because there's a couple different things to think about here.
Yeah.
I think you all know if you get, a random phone number calls you on your cell phone, odds are it's someone who's trying to sell you something or it's a scam, right? So we all kind of know, like, don't answer that phone call. When you get a text message from a random number, so same sort of thing. Sometimes those are legitimate. I get, text messages from organizations that I partner with and say, hey, my doctor's office might say your appointment is tomorrow, right? Like that's probably legit. But what is also true now, it's something that's really worth keeping in mind, using technology, the attackers can use someone else's phone number and send a text message as if they were them. They can use someone else's phone number and they can call you from that phone number as if they are them. And so, as an example, my father received a text message from me, my phone number, and it said, hey, Dad, I need you to call me. I need you to text me back. There's something going on, right? And he noticed it to be enough out of character to call me, say, hey, what's going on? And then it rang to my phone number, and I was like, that wasn't me, right? And so you can report those things to the phone company and say that someone is, trying to use my phone number. But it is as easy as, unfortunately, going on Amazon and buying a device that can send a phone call via the cellular network using someone else's number and have it show up on your phone with a caller ID that says this is someone.
And it's like when you're sitting here, to me, that's like, as someone who may fall victim to one of these things because of how common they are, it sounds discouraging. It's like, how do you prevent it, right? So what are some ways to prevent these types of things from, or you becoming susceptible to a scam?
I mean, so the main thing to think about is if it doesn't feel right, it's likely not right. And so I think we're all becoming more in tune to, what is a conversation that is going to go in the wrong direction? What is a conversation that I didn't initiate that I wouldn't expect to have with this person, right? My father receiving a text message from me asking a question that I wouldn't ask him, something doesn't feel quite right. It's really just a sense of awareness, of being thoughtful about if something doesn't feel right, verify it. If Memory and Movement was to call you and say, hey, your appointment is on Tuesday at 4 p.m., that's totally normal. If they were to call you and say, hey, there's something going on with your payment and it's urgent that you call us right away, and don't call the main number, but call this main number, that's not right. It's thinking about things in terms of what is an expected conversation to have with these organizations.
That makes sense. And so for our population, it's not only our patients, but we also have caregivers who are caring for patients who have phones and have technology that may have some cognitive decline, right? And so in those situations, what can those caregivers do to help support those patients or loved ones?
One of the most important things is just to have open communication about all these things. Another kind of attribute that can be generational, I would say the youngest generation and the elder generation are more likely to not want to talk about their mistakes. Mm-hmm. And I have seen it many times where someone starts to think that maybe they are the victim of a scam, maybe something isn't right, but they feel ashamed to mention it. Mm-hmm. And so they don't, and it's worse. And a loved one who becomes involved later than they should have would say, I wish you would have mentioned that to me. I wish you would have mentioned this phone call that didn't feel right. Communication and thinking about this from a team perspective is really important. And the other piece is not feeling any shame over this. The statistic, ridiculous statistic in 2025, the over 60 population in the US was scammed by cyber criminals for $7.6 billion.
Oh my gosh.
It's everybody, right? It at some point, I have had my accounts hacked, and I'm in the business of cyber defense. And so though there is some pride, I wish I hadn't. I also kind of recognize that it, in some ways, is inevitable that there will be someone will have some level of success. What mitigates that is reacting, recognizing it. There was an exploit that happened here. I can recognize it. I know to call my bank. I know to call the credit bureau, my credit card, right? As an example, right? Someone broke into my email. This is theoretical. Someone broke into my email. They got my credit card, and now they're using it to charge things at who knows where. The first thing I'm just going to very quickly go to the credit bureau, and I'm going to put out a credit alert. I'm going to very quickly go to my bank, and I'm going to lock the card.
Right.
And so having the conversation and knowing that we're all kind of in this together is one of the most important things we can do here.
This is just a side note to that, but when you say to call your credit bureau, do you need to call all three common credit bureaus? Do you call one? What is the kind of the recommendation there?
If you know that your identity, credit card, etc., has been exploited, you only need to call one of the credit bureaus because they all let each other know.
Okay.
If your credit card is being used fraudulently, your first call should be to your bank to lock the credit card. You don't necessarily have to cancel the card and go through what it can be a relatively painful process, like getting a new card, getting a new number. This is again where the communication is important. That can be kind of painful. You can just temporarily pause your card while you investigate those things, but speed is really important. So calling the credit card company, calling your bank when it comes to a credit card, debit card, checking account, savings account, that's your first stop. If it's your social security number, if it's your identity, if you receive a letter in the mail of an account that you opened somewhere that isn't necessarily your credit card, but it's tied to your identity, the credit bureaus, all three of them are tied together, and that's the next really good call to make. There's a government website, identitytheft.gov, which you can also report a cyber incident. It will provide you with tools, tips, additional resources and support. It would probably be my third call in that scenario.
Yeah. What was the name again?
Identitytheft.gov. You're welcome.
Yeah. And then the other component, right, outside of credit cards is also like healthcare, right? There was a huge breach in Medicare earlier this year where only reason I knew that is because a lot of our patients and caregivers started bringing in new Medicare numbers. And so there was a huge breach. And so how would you be aware, other than just receiving a letter from Medicare saying, here's a new card, what's another way for our patients and caregivers to kind of look out for those type of scams if someone wants to access that information?
There are resources for, I think if I asked you all to raise your hand if you had ever received a letter that your identity had been stolen or that your information had been involved in a breach, I think 100% of us in the US would raise their hands. We all have access to free identity monitoring services through some of those breaches. So, the LifeLock type companies will provide active monitoring of those things. And so if this is, if your bank or your, any other providers you have aren't already providing you with that service, it's worth looking into those services because they'll help with active monitoring there. On the medical side, there isn't a really good way to actively manage and monitor that. But I do think that it's worth keeping an eye on that, again, that sort of credit level, because going back to these cyber criminals as an industry, it used to be true that they would want to get your data. They used to try to exploit, blackmail, ransomware individuals. And they, at this point, have gotten all of it. Effectively assume all of that data has all been exploited, and they now have so much of it that it's not worth anything to them anymore. There's no market for it. And so though someone may have access, they may have your Medicare number, they're not trying to get your medical data. They're trying to apply for an account as you to then receive a check or to demand a refund or something like that. And so I think you can primarily think of it all on the financial side, thinking about it from a, again, on the credit perspective. I don't want any accounts to be opened in my name that I don't specifically approve.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And so you mentioned like malware. There's a bunch of different names in like the IT world about these different wares. Can you talk a little bit about those differences? I know it wasn't one of our questions, but I thought it was a great one because people hear them all the time.
Yeah.
Like malware, scamware, scareware, like all these different things. And so could you just explain a little bit of those?
Yeah, absolutely. So the traditional vector for getting access to the victim comes from the computer, right? You go on a website, something gets downloaded onto your computer. It's malware, which means it's some kind of application that shouldn't be there, that's designed to steal something, corrupt something, etc. That's sort of the classic access point. It's still something that is of concern. I will say these days, most computers, if you have a relatively updated computer, let's say 7 or so years or younger, your computer most likely has a pretty good built-in malware scanner. You're not super likely to have a website download something onto your computer compared to how you used to be. What those things aren't good at is if you receive an email with a link to a place, this could be an example of scareware, right? And you might receive something, an email that scares you into thinking there is something on your computer, or you might receive a pop-up on your computer. This likely comes from some website that you visited, and it may not even show up right away, but what pops up on your computer is something that says, you have a virus. Again, probably not true. You very likely don't have a virus. It's like an ad pop-up, but a bad person made it a scary ad.
And it'll be like this big exclamation point and bright yellow, and
you can't close it.
And you can't close it. And it opens it up.
Every time you restart your computer, it comes back. So on the bright side, these are actually innocuous. But they're designed to get you to take an action. So they're not going to hurt you directly. But if you click the link or you call the phone number on there, now you are going down the path of starting to interact with the attacker. And so that's scareware. And one of the ways that we usually fix that, what usually happens is they kind of bookmarked their scareware in your browser. Like when you open your browser, it says like, go to CNN.com, go to FoxNews.com, go to this scareware site. And they hide it in there. And so you can generally go and just clean it out. It may, there's probably a YouTube video that would show you in depth how to do that. For me, easier for me to say, right, you just go in and clean that out. But usually it's just you put a new tab in your browser, and that's the scareware thing. The biggest threat right now comes from fake emails. So compromised emails that come from people because their account was compromised, and someone uses their account to send you an invitation to a dinner party that isn't going to happen, and that you respond to and say, I can't make it to the dinner party. Effectively they're establishing some trust with you because they're coming from this legitimate account. And they're going to try to get you to, click on the dinner party link. And when you click on the dinner party link, they're going to try to get access to your email. And they basically turn your email into a potential place to send a bunch of additional emails. What they're doing is they're just trying to get access to a whole bunch of contacts because they can use AI and they can scan all of your contacts. They can scan all of the emails you've ever sent. And again, back to the HR and research and development division of the attackers, they're going to look for specific emails of contracts you've signed, vendors you use. Do you have a Microsoft account? Where does your credit card bill go every month? How much money do you send to Apple for streaming services every month? And then they're going to craft an email back to you that says, "Hey, this is Apple. I know that you really like to subscribe to The Atlantic, and your annual renewal is next month. And just so you know, we no longer have your credit card. So if you can just click this link and put in your updated credit card number," right? Super innocuous. You're expecting that from The Atlantic. It checks out. It comes from an email address that looks like The Atlantic, right? So the AI, the evolution of AI has allowed that level of attack, what we call spear phishing, very specific phishing email. That is sort of the most frightening, or rather the thing you should be paying the most attention to. Things that come from people that are not actually coming from that person.
What is a way, when you get one of those emails, or just any email, now that we should just be aware that we're looking at every email, what is a way, or is there like a tactic to look at when looking at an email to say, what are some things I need to check out before I click a link?
There are a couple of things that we recommend. Actually have an acronym that we use for every email that seems suspicious. And that acronym is SLAM, SLAM. So the first one is sender. Is the sender someone you recognize? Is there anything suspicious about the sender? A thing to keep in mind, and many people recognize that when you get an email and you're looking at the top of your email, it says who the sender is, and then it'll often have in parenthesis their email address. So it's like Bill Hammelmann, in parenthesis, bill@ccpteam.com, which is my email. Well, that Bill Hammelmann part, I can make it say anything I want. And so if I'm trying to trick somebody, I might send them an email from a Gmail account, but I'm going to call it Bill Hammelmann because you recognize you're expecting an email from me. And send this to Cody from a nefarious Gmail account, and I'll say Bill Hammelmann. And so, again, when we say sender, not only is it the name you would expect, but is it the email address you would expect? Are you receiving an email address from Microsoft, but the email address is XYZ at something .ed.fr, right? So verify the sender. Next is there a link in the email? Links aren't necessarily going to just download malware onto your computer. They might take you to a page that looks a lot like, your Spectrum email login, and might try to log in, and then try to log into the wrong site with your real password, and now they have your Spectrum password, and this is how they send their email. So anything with a link you're not expecting, that's another thing to be watching for. That's another red flag. A is for action. Are they asking you to do something that is out of the ordinary, right? Is this something that you wouldn't expect? And then M is the message. Is it written in such a way that you has good grammar, that is complete, has all of the additional kind of attributes that you would expect to see in that message. So when I receive a message, is anything out of the ordinary? And again, I always think in terms of is this something I'm expecting or not something I'm not expecting? If I'm not expecting it, then I'm going to interrogate it a bit more. Is this the right sender, link, et cetera? So that is something I go through every time. It's really suspicious email.
Yeah, that's super smart. Another thing that we commonly hear is about password managers. Can you talk a little bit about what that means and if we should use them?
I can. It is the number one recommendation in cybersecurity right now that you don't use the same password over and over in multiple places. And The reason for that is obvious. If you were to have that one password exploited based on the speed at which the attackers now can operate with AI, they can take that one password and they can do a thing called password spraying, which means they try it everywhere that they think you could possibly have that login, and they will try to get into as many places as possible. And so you should definitely not use the same password in multiple places. Well, we're all humans, and remembering millions of passwords that are complex is not possible. And so password managers are a piece of software. You can have it on your cell phone. You can have it on your computer. Almost every browser you could be using, your Google Chrome browser, probably have a built-in password thing. Will say, hey, do you want me to remember this password for you? My absolute recommendation is yes, definitely use those tools. You should allow those tools to recommend for you a strong new password for any site you go to. Don't reuse the same password on sites. And you can utilize those tools to just create a password for you and put that password in and expect it to remember your password. The strategy you should use is you should have one unique password that is the one that you remember. And that's the one that unlocks your password manager, unlocks your browser, right? Unlocks the place to the rest of your passwords. And then you only need to remember that one password. And you don't use that one password anywhere else except for on that password manager. So I would, if you are a person who has a lot of accounts, if you are a person who has had a cyber incident, you've been hacked in the past, you are showing up on the criminal's list of leads, and they have a very, very long list of leads, you are more likely to be hacked. And so putting the time into changing your passwords using a password manager is well.
That makes total sense.
A password manager is a type of tool, and there are a lot of different brands of password managers. So LastPass, Keeper, these are some of the brands, but the tool is called a password manager.
When they say passkey on Google, is that legitimate?
Passkeys are legitimate. They are the next generation of secure way to sign in. And so I can talk a little bit about passkeys because that's actually a really great direction to be thinking about. Password managers serve the purpose of helping you have a unique password in every place. And that password is kept in either on your phone or on your browser, wherever it is. A passkey is the next generation of sign-in security, where it will say, if you're using this device, let's say it's your laptop, this laptop has a unique identity, and this laptop is signing into, let's say, Google. And so this laptop into that Google account, those two things are unique. It creates a passkey, which is unique. And you don't need a password. You don't need anything. It's just your laptop remembers that passkey. And it's almost impossible for an attacker to get that information, because even if they were to get it, they don't have your laptop that has that special key within it. And so you will have a unique passkey for your cell phone, your laptop. If you have someone else's computer you've logged in from, each of those may have a unique passkey to get into Google. But with that, you don't need to remember a password. That's managed, and it's much more secure than a password. Because even if you were to be sent to a fake website and you tried to enter that information, the passkey doesn't work because it's unique to your Gmail and your laptop. So passkeys are great. And anywhere that you can turn on a passkey, instead of getting a cell phone text message, instead of trying to remember a password, the passkey is the next generation of what we call multi-factor authentication, the most secure way you can log in. Great question.
That's a great question.
I have it, but I'm not sure how I got it. I just sort of trusted Google or Chrome or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the banks are starting to roll them out automatically. And so the next time you log into, it just depends on the bank, but I know Capital One as an example, you log into Capital One right now and it'll say, hey, would you like to use a passkey for your next login? You often these days are getting asked for biometrics on your cell phone. Would you like to use biometrics to log in instead of your password? Always say yes to that as well, because the biometrics behind the scenes is actually creating a passkey. The unique thing is, let's say it's your thumb, your thumbprint is a unique key that is used to create this passkey uniquely to sign into the Capital One website. So biometrics are fantastic as well. And you don't have to remember what your thumbprint looks like, right?
Or what your face looks like.
Or what you, yeah. I'm less convinced on face because sometimes it's like, this doesn't look like you.
Yeah.
But
whether you have your glasses on, your hat on, right, those types of things.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just tired. Give me a break.
No, literally. One of the other big topics that we always hear with cybersecurity is AI. Everyone's new best friend, right? And AI. And so when we're talking about AI, how has that been introduced? And you've mentioned a couple examples already, but if you just want to expound on that a little bit more.
I will. So let me start with the good news. The good news is AI is being used even more quickly by the good guys than it is by the bad guys. But there is an arms race with AI right now. So some of the things that are really cool about AI is it can generate voices. It can generate video. That's really cool if you're a creator. It's not cool if someone is calling you or
replicating
using FaceTime to fake your voice, to even potentially fake your image. And so AI is being used for a couple of things right now on the threat side. It is being used to allow them to cast a really wide net really quickly. And so if they find, if they get access to someone's email, they can use AI to really quickly analyze all of the 20 years worth of emails that person's ever sent and come out quickly with a couple of key things that they can then move to the next place. So that would have maybe taken someone days to engineer some social, vulnerable attack. Now they can do that really quickly. So it allows them to scale really quickly. So the defense has to be really fast. And the other piece then is designing deep, resonating, compelling attacks. And so what are the messages you're used to receiving from someone you trust? AI can help them generate a message just like that. And this is, I don't mean this to scare you, but to give you awareness, again, of like, if something doesn't feel right, question it. But AI can look through the videos you have stored online or on your phone, or videos of a grandchild or of a sister or family member, and they can get their voice, and they can take that voice and they can turn it into a bot that can talk to you on the phone. They only need a few seconds of someone's voice, and then they can have that voice call you and have a conversation. I feel like
we've all seen this on social media, right? It's like you go on social media and you have to question sometimes now the videos that you see, right, on social media, because you're like, wait, is this AI or is this real? Right. And so those are other examples of where maybe people are not using it with malintent, but scammers can just as easily use it that way as well. Right.
Absolutely. And so what is true now is that they can do it really quick.